Welcome back to Woman of His Word. Today is going to be a topic that is super important, and actually the Father has been putting this topic on my heart for I think months now, but just again he's starting to bring it up in chapters over and over. And so we're going to talk about Abraham, and this is really important, and I know it's going to reach who it needs to reach, and it's going to prick the hearts of whoever it needs to prick, because this is what the Father needs to get through to some people. All right, so many people understand the Elohim of the Bible and Yeshua the Messiah, our Savior, as being compassionate, kind, loving, and a lot of them take that and put that into a certain idea that he would never call me to do X, Y, Z because this is who he is. And you're right. That is exactly who he is. He is kind, merciful, compassionate, and loving. But with that, he is also the embodiment of truth, righteousness, and all-knowing. So where am I getting to? People love the story of Abraham. For years and years, as long as I have been in church, and as long as I have even been pulled out of church by the Father himself and have been a part of different ministries and fellowships, people love the story of Abraham, the father of the faith, right? And I love Abraham's story personally. I love Abraham. It is such a, I cannot tell you enough about how much the Father has had me walk in that feels like I have felt and experienced some of the life of Abraham. With that being said, many people love Abraham, the idea of Abraham, and yet and still don't even understand the depths of his story and how the Father will also call some of his children, even today, to do some of the very things that Abraham was called to do. It may not look exactly the same, but it is within the same path, so to say. All right, let me explain myself. So I'm going to start there. A lot of people love Abraham and his story. A lot of people don't even understand the depths of what Abraham's story holds and how Yah still moves that way today. And this is a good verse. This is a good reference verse for that right here. Spoken by your own Messiah. Starting at John 8:39. They answered, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, if you are truly Abraham's children, then do the works of Abraham and follow his example. But as it is, you want to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from Yah. This is not the way Abraham acted. You are doing the works of your own father, he says to them. All right, so where am I going with this? All right, let's take it back to certain things that the Father has called Abraham to do, all right? And I think some of y'all may know exactly where I'm going with this, but stick around because there are important depths and layers to this, okay? So the Father has been bringing up to me a lot, again, verses that have to do with Abraham leaving and departing from his countrymen, his land, his town, his father's family. Okay, listen to these verses real quick. So now I'm going to read to you from the book of Genesis, chapter 12. It says, now in Haran, Yah had said to Abram, he wasn't Abraham yet, go away from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you abundantly and make your name great, exalted, distinguished, and you shall be a blessing, a source of great good to others. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse, that is subject to my wrath and judgments, the one who curses you, despises, dishonors, and has contempt for you. And in you all the families, nations of the earth will be blessed. Okay? So it says, so Abram departed in faithful obedience as Yah had directed him. And Lot, his nephew, left with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his nephew, and all their possessions which they had acquired, and the people's servants. Now here's another few verses, and it's in Acts 7. And Acts is when Stephen starts talking before they stone him to death. And it says in verse 2, and he answered, brothers and fathers, listen to me. The Elohim of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran. And he said to him, leave your country and your relatives and come to the land that I will show you. That I will show you. Hadn't even shown him yet. Okay. Then he left the land of the Chaldeans and settled in Haran. And from there, after his father died, Yah sent him to this country in which you now live. Now, there's that, and also Abraham's story about being willing to surrender Isaac is a huge one that people talk about all the time too. But let me put these things into perspective for you, into a today perspective. Yah is still calling people to do this. Absolutely. Absolutely. He is still calling people today, 2026, and all throughout these centuries in between, to leave their family, their country, their towns, their parents' home, yada, 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 XYZ, in faith and obedience, so that he can do what needs to be done, because he is compassionate and kind and a loving Elohim, and he knows all things. And he knows that when someone doesn't listen to this instruction and they stay behind, they end up just like Lot's wife. And they stay behind, they end up falling by the wayside. They end up as someone who never lives up to their full potential, because they decided to keep the cord connected, because they decided to continue to depend on and be comforted by the things that the Father is calling them away from. Might I remind you, if you didn't know, Abraham's father's house, Abraham's father, they worshipped other gods. Yah made himself known to Abram. And Abram believed that he was hearing from the one true God, the one true Elohim, the creator of heaven and earth. Abram was not a Jew. My goodness, the people that say, the amount of people that I hear that from. Abram was not a Jew. Abram wasn't even a Hebrew yet. Abram was from Ur of Chaldees, Mesopotamia, which, if I'm not mistaken, was also a part of Babylon, because Babylon covered many areas. Y'all can fact check me on that. But point is, Abram was not even a Hebrew father of the faith yet. All right? Yet. Yah knew who he was going to be, though. But in order for him to be this, he had to walk in faith and obedience. All right? So where do we go from here? He leaves his father's house. But listen, it doesn't just take physically leaving somewhere for you to walk in faith and obedience. A lot of the times it takes mentally, emotionally, and spiritually detaching from these things. The reason being is because if you leave, but you still take it all with you, you're going to have a hard time in the land of the living. And understand, you're going to have a hard time. You're physically going to be here, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're still going to be back there. So around February, the Father had started to speak to me about this already. And because me personally, I have been out of the home since like early 20s. So I'm like, Father, why are you bringing this up to me? Who's going through this? Who needs to hear this? But then he reminded me of something. A lot of the times he gives me words for me first to then distribute to others and explain to them what he's trying to say, because the Bible is deep and there's layers, and it's not always what you just see right there in front of your face. A lot of the times there's layers, and only if you call unto Yah and ask him to uncover the deeper things, then he will show you, right? So with this being said, the Father was ministering to me during this time. And it was a time where, like, this Bad Bunny thing started being talked about. I think he was in the Super Bowl, right? And mind you, I don't care for football anymore. I don't watch the Super Bowl. I I don't care for any of that stuff. And it just kept coming up and coming up. And this whole thing about Hispanics and Puerto Ricans and all of this stuff. And it started to bring me back like nostalgically in a bad way. And I was like, what is this that I'm feeling, Father? I was like, what is this that I'm feeling? Because I don't even care for this stuff. And what he started showing me was there are things that we still think and feel, and emotionally they come up that are still attached to Ur of Chaldees, right? Or wherever you're from. Personally, I am Puerto Rican myself. And when certain things have come up here and there, where it's stuff that I can relate to from my childhood, or stuff that I can relate to from the island that I was born in, and the places that I've been, and it brings back this kind of like these desires or these this enticing like kind of feeling starts to come up, right? And that's not I promise you. I had to really sit in it for that time being, because I was like, Father, this is not me. But he allowed me to feel it in order to then understand what he was trying to tell me. That some people, even though they still have the faith and obedience to leave physically, they do not detach emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. They still pull all of that right on with them. This is just like how we talk about when Yah pulls them out of Egypt, but they still have Egypt inside of them. And this is why they were complaining. They weren't able to appreciate anything that the Father had done. And it's like, okay, well, you're out of Egypt, but you're acting just like you did back there in Egypt, right? And the Father has already delivered you. Now, this is important because he needs people to understand that he still calls a righteous and faithful and obedient people to do these very hard things, even today. He does, okay? And it's not something that you will always understand in the moment, but he then shows you later on. He then helps you to understand. And it's because a lot of the times when we remain attached to the things that we grew up in or the people that we grew up with, we do not get to grow to our fullest potential, because there's a certain dependence there. And then there's a certain attachment there that is not always good, okay? So an example for me right now, okay? Like I said, I'm Puerto Rican, but whenever all of this Bad Bunny stuff started coming out and people were talking about like, oh, like, you know, just praising him and glorifying him, which by the way is wickedness, evil stuff. I don't care. But Father started to show me right there in that moment. It's like, yeah, I could care less about this. I could care less about repping where I'm from and who I am and the culture that I grew up in, because if it doesn't glorify you, I don't want it. I don't care. Right? And this goes for any place, any culture. If the culture and the habits and all these things are not glorifying the Father, then it doesn't matter. Because quite literally, quite frankly, he does not give two craps where you came from. He knows where you came from. And it's not to say that, you know, Puerto Rico is horrible and there's no God-fearing people there. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that wherever you come from, no matter where it is, there are certain things tied to that culture, to that place, that does not allow you to move forward. There are certain people tied to that culture, to that place, that will not allow you to move forward. And it's not always that they're trying to do that. No, it's the fact that a prophet will not be welcome in their own hometown. Period. Stop right there. Messiah said it so well. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you'll never be called back to be a witness. That doesn't mean that the Father cannot work things out and bring salvation out of that. That doesn't mean any of that. What that means is simply, if he's calling you out, you need to do it. But you don't just need to do it in the natural. You need to do it in the spiritual, in the mental, in the emotional as well. Because if not, you might as well have just stayed. You understand? You might as well have just gone right back. So what the Father does when he pulls us out of these situations or these places is he begins to work out of us every single thing that does not please him or align with him that we learned from these environments. All right? Because the thing is, We can be strong and Messiah can be strong within us, but there's only so much strength that you can produce on your own to where you're then hitting this wall all the time. And it's like, why? It's because the place where you are, you have outgrown it. The mentality that you had, you have outgrown it. You are not the same. And that's not for everybody. The Father does not call everybody out. The Father has specific reasons why he does call people out of their specific hometowns, places, families, whatever. Okay? He has specific reasons for that. But understand that if he does, it is for your good. It may hurt, it may not feel well, but it is for your good. Okay? And it's not enough to do it in the natural. You also have to do it within. Okay? Detach. Let the Father filter through you. Okay? Let the Holy Spirit just like come through you and filter every single thing out that you have learned from these environments that you were never supposed to learn, that you were never supposed to come into agreement with, that was never supposed to be done to you, that was never supposed to be spoken to you. All of these things never supposed to be taught to you. All right. And that is important because the Father is still doing this today. All right. He's still doing it. Like, stop thinking that just because he is loving and compassionate and kind, that he would not ask you to do this. And I keep talking to y'all about these things. Trust me, I hardly ever does the Father allow me to talk about what I don't walk through myself. Straight up. And in regards to the other part of Isaac, sometimes there are sacrifices that have to be made that don't seem like they make sense in the beginning, but then afterwards, and after the pain and after the sacrifice and after going through all of it, the Father can help you to make sense of it later on. But you know he called you to do it. That's where it lands. That's it. And nobody can tell you otherwise when it's the Father calling you to do something. So sometimes people are going to have to surrender their Isaac, give up their Isaac. I'm not talking about putting a child on the altar and, whatever, because I can't even say that on YouTube, I think. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that sometimes people will have to give up that very thing that they love in obedience and faith for the Father to work in that situation. Because if you didn't notice, he didn't have to actually give him up. The Father was testing his faith and obedience to him. Y'all, like, come on. We have to read the word and act like it actually is still alive, because it is. And when we start thinking that it's not, we hit a wall. Because there's a lot of things that the Father will call his chosen and faithful ones to do that end up looking strange from the outside, right? Unordinary. Look, listen to this verse right here, spoken by your own Messiah. Mark 10:29. Yeshua said, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, there is no one who has given up a house or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or farms for my sake and for the gospel's sake, who will not receive 100 times as much now in this time, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and lands with persecutions, and in the age to come, eternal life. All right. So this is something that is going to stir some people up. It's going to prick some hearts, because some of y'all have been holding on to things that the Father been told you to let go of. Some of y'all have been in places that the Father been told you to leave. Some of y'all have been afraid to leave old practices and cultural behaviors behind that the Father been told you were wrong, and all in the name of and in the sake of pleasing people, pleasing others, and pleasing the flesh. Okay. Ultimately, the things of the flesh does not want to do. The spirit is willing. Yes, I know, like that needs to happen. That needs to take place. But the flesh is weak. But I can't. But this, but that. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And the spirit knows. But the flesh wants to convince the spirit that they're not hearing what they're actually hearing. I've been through it, walked through it, and had to walk through it. And I say had to because who else am I going to obey other than my Heavenly Father? Nobody else holds my life in their hands. If we start fearing man over him, that's a problem. That's a problem. Too many people don't understand that counts even for family structures, that counts for spouses, that counts for children, that counts for grandparents, that counts for friends and communities and congregations and fellowships and churches and pastors. And if you fear anybody above Yah, you are in hot water, because you are not allowing him to dictate your life. You're allowing them to dictate your life. All right. So I hope and pray that this message blesses someone. Don't despise the words of Yah. Don't despise the voice of Yah. If he is calling you to do it, then do it. He knows what's best for you. It's going to hurt. You may feel like you don't understand what's going on. It may feel like you are walking into something that is unknown, unusual, unordinary, and that people are going to ridicule you for, talk crazy about you for. They are. Even if they don't say it to your face, they will do that. Trust and believe. I have heard it all. It's all been said and spoken to me. Yah has revealed things that have been spoken behind my back, that have been spoken about me to others. And yet, here I am. Because your enemies, even those who think they're doing it for the right reasons or saying the things for the right reasons, they don't determine your path. Look at Job and his friends, y'all. Job was accused because of things he was going through. Job was accused of his friends for having done wrong for whatever came onto him. And this is why I have said in many of my videos, people blindly mistake tribulation, trials, and persecution for disobedience and, bad luck and like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with her. And is she really a child of God if all these things are happening to her? Boy, let me tell you, they don't read their Bibles, or they don't read them enough, or they don't read them with eyes to see and ears to hear. Trust and believe that. So, and let me just clarify, this is not always that he calls you out of family structures or hometowns that you grew up in, but a lot of the times he will call you out of places that you've been in for too long as well. And when I say that, I mean where your season has been up, like your season has been up over there with a certain community, like a church community, a certain people. Some people think that people are disobedient for walking out of the church or leaving the church or leaving the fellowship, the congregation. No. Like, you don't understand Yah. You don't understand Yah enough. There are some people that are walking out because literally the Father has called them out. They were not meant to be there. That's not for everybody, but there are some people that the Father has brought them to certain places to do what he said to Jeremiah. This is what he said to Jeremiah. Jeremiah 1:10. Today I appoint you to stand up against nations and kingdoms. Some you must uproot and tear down, destroy and overthrow. Others you must build up and plant. Okay? And so a lot of the times he will send specific people, a lot of the times those who he has called as prophets, to just go into a situation, a community, a circumstance for a season or for a time to speak what needs to be spoken, or to give the direction and wisdom that the Father is calling them to give. That doesn't mean people will always listen, and that doesn't mean people will always know what's actually happening, why this person may be somewhere for a certain time, but the Father calls them out, and they think that person is just being disobedient, or they think that person is just going to be lost and forsaken by the Father. No, like, listen, if that's been you, have faith and have hope. They don't understand your calling, they don't understand your walk, but Yah does, because he's called you to it. He's the one. That's not to say that you're never going to have somewhere specifically that you stay for a while or whatever. But a lot of the times, that's just how Yah structures certain people's lives in ministry, certain people. But either way, don't think it's just for a home or a father. There's some people that never had grew up with their parents, but they're still called out of their family's household, or still called out of their communities that they grew up in all their lives, okay? So it's not specific to just your father's house or just your mother's house. It is specific to whatever the Father is calling you out of in faith and obedience to walk in and detach from. Just think about Yah's people coming out of Egypt, okay? You're in bondage. That's why he's calling you out. You're in bondage. You're in bondage, whether it be spiritually, religiously, as far as sin, you know? And a lot of the times it's because of who you are still around and what you are still around. Understand deeper the heart of the Father. His plan is to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope in a future. That doesn't mean that you will not feel the pain and sometimes the uncertainty of that. And I struggle sometimes with the how do you say this? I struggle sometimes with the saying or the quotes that go around that say, well, if you feel a peace about it, then that means it's Yah. I can literally tell you that there are things that I knew that the Father called me to that I didn't feel a peace about right away until after I did it. And I knew it was him. And he showed me and he confirmed to me that it was him. But I didn't always feel that peace in that moment when he told me or when he was making me aware of it. Do you understand? And so I really battle with those ideologies sometimes and that mindset, because it screams to me that it's somebody who hasn't really had to do hard things. Somebody who hasn't really had to do hard things for Yah. Some of us, we have had to sacrifice. And for those who know, they know. For those who understand, understand. So I battle with really just throwing out that phrase around, because you will feel a peace beyond all understanding. Beyond all understanding means that there may still be a whole bunch of chaos going on around you, and none of it may make sense at the moment until you do it. Until you do it, you take that step, and then the Father starts to fill you with his peace, because you're doing it for him. And so you should be staying close with him while doing it. And then he starts to show you the reason why. And then he starts to unfold everything for you. And then he starts to show you like, hey, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have made the right choice. And the enemy will still even test you in that. But if you know the Father, if you know your shepherd, your Messiah, okay? I love this verse. He says, my sheep, they know my voice and they follow me. And they follow me. It's not enough to just know his voice. You have to follow him in order to continually know his voice and hear his voice, okay? Connected to the vine. So please stop telling people, and if you're one of those people that are watching this video, stop telling people that the Father would not call them to do hard things. Stop telling people that, you know, the same Elohim that we all read about, that we should be all reading about in the Word from the beginning to the end, not just like the parts that you want to read, that he's not the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He is the same. He is the same. And Messiah did not come to abolish anything that he said. Please understand, like, you don't know the Father if you don't think that he will not call you to do hard things if you are actually his chosen and elect. If he's not calling you to do hard things, or you think he's not calling you to do hard things, and that doesn't mean that it's all going to look the same for everybody. But if he's not calling you to do things that your flesh wouldn't actually want you to do, that goes against what you think and believe, naturally, you might not be walking with the same God. I'm not saying that the Father calls everybody to do these things, but for those who know, and there's been a knowing in their spirit deep within them that he is calling you to do something that feels very hard, feels very uncertain, but you know you know that it has not left your heart, your mind, your spirit, and he has confirmed it to you. Because here's another thing, people go out on a limb, like just doing things without the Father even confirming things to them. And the thing is, we have to know the difference between the Father actually confirming something to us and us just like kind of ignoring it, like, I didn't really hear that, even though he showed you like so many different things and signs. And we have to know the difference between that and just being like someone who always needs more and more signs, right? Because Messiah said it best, like that's a wicked generation, always needing a sign, right? He will give you signs. Trust and believe, he will give you signs. And those signs will always confirm and align with the word itself, even if you don't truly understand it at the moment. But he will give you signs. And so what I'm not saying is just go and do something crazy that Yah never asked you to do. What I am saying is that if you know the Father has stirred up your heart and spirit, that you need to depart from a certain place, a certain people, a certain mindset, a certain spiritual or cultural practice or experience or community even, then this should serve as confirmation for you. All right? This should serve as confirmation. Trust in the Father. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Y'all have a blessed day. I pray that this reaches exactly who it needs to reach. That one person or maybe many people. Father knows.